Raw last night was one of the better Raws in the Netflix era. I'm going to let you know my thoughts on the episode, as well as some other pro wrestling news at the end of this video. All of that, stay tuned on this episode of Screw the Script. Raw last night opened up with Logan Paul coming out to cut a promo, and then out comes Gunther. And I'm not quite sure what they're doing with him now. I think he's a tweener. Might be leaning towards face here soon, because he comes out and basically shit talks Logan Paul, and then eventually Jay Uso comes out and gets the upper hand on Logan Paul. I'm not quite sure how I feel about Gunther, how they're using him lately these last few months now after losing the title and then having a match against Pat McAfee that he should have won in less than 5 minutes and didn't. And now he's got, some respect towards Pat McAfee and I guess Jay Uso, even though, let's not forget that he literally just beat the shit out of his twin brother not too long ago. I don't really like the sudden change. There wasn't really much hinting towards it at all. There was no slow burn. It's not quite as bad as the Becky Lynch quick heel turn right after Mania, but I'm not quite liking where this is going. They did a highlight of the night video package. I'm not quite sure if I've missed that before, because I don't know if I've seen it before. It might be a new thing that they're doing. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these things down below. It was fine. As long as they replace it with other promos and ad breaks and things like that, I'm fine with having it. But it was about 20 minutes into the show until we got our first match. Penta and Styles versus Balor and JD, and this was actually my favorite match of the night. It was one of the best tag matches I have seen WWE have on Raw in a long time. JD and Balor are a really good tag team together. They had a lot of solid moves that they did together. You could just really see the synergy between the two of them, which I really liked to see. And then you had Styles. He outshined everyone in that match, even though he's the oldest. And again, a complaint that I have is Penta just doesn't feel like Penta, the Penta that I knew prior to WWE. Yes, there are a lot of people that love him, probably because they never experienced him outside of WWE, but he was not this watered down in AEW, and certainly not the years prior to that even. Again, the same moves. The only things that he did last night was he jumped over the top rope with Styles in unison. He hit his Mexican Destroyer on JD, who sold it very well, by the way, on the outside floor. And then maybe a couple other things. That's it. AJ Styles was the one who shined in that team. And again, if you're going to build him as your top next luchador, do so. They're really not doing much with him at all, and he takes another pin. Yes, I understand for storyline purposes why he keeps getting pinned, but it's not doing him any favors. You're watering him down. You're having him on a losing streak now, because that's another time that he's been pinned. And this match ended in a dirty way, which is a complaint that I have throughout the whole night. Almost every match ended with some sort of run-in or distraction to cause a pinfall. Not the best overall ending to matches for this Raw, but this tag match was really, really, really good. We saw Natalya, Becky Lynch, and Roxanne Perez in a triple threat match. The winner got to advance to Money in the Bank, which we saw Roxanne Perez win this. She's definitely getting an immediate push on Raw, which I'm glad to see. I hope that doesn't slow down at all for her this rest of 2025. Natalya is Natalya. She's a worker, but I really have not cared for her in a long time, probably since like 2015. And again, Becky Lynch, just like the crowd, I really don't feel like the crowd wants her to be heel. I feel like they're being force-fed a heel Becky Lynch. But all in all, it was a pretty solid triple threat match. One note that I want to make before I get on to the next match, they are starting to do backstage segments better. It was a gripe that I had with WWE early on in this channel, that I couldn't stand that they were doing little segments backstage in the most random places, like a parking lot by a stack of pallets, or in a boiler room, or like it's, just weird spots. Most of the promos that we saw last night, and backstage segments, I should say, were in locker rooms, stuff that made sense. So that's a good point that I want to make towards WWE. Maybe they have somebody working in creative or a scout that maybe came across my stuff. I don't know, but I've been clamoring for weeks for them to stop doing that, and last night at least they really cut back on the stupid segment locations, and I hope that continues. Grayson Waller had a match tonight against Sheamus. Sheamus still good in the ring, but you can tell he's slowed down. He picks up a win against Grayson Waller. Waller has some music that I like. You know, it's not generic. A lot of the wrestlers in WWE, like I've said before, have super generic rock band sounding music, but not Grayson Waller. So that's good that he has a very recognizable song. And obviously so does Sheamus, but he's been around for a long time, back when they actually put more emphasis and effort into entrances. This was an okay match. You could tell that Sheamus has really slowed down with his age. He gets gassed 5 minutes into a match. Grayson Waller had to carry the first front half of the match until obviously Sheamus took over and won. And then we saw Austin Theory force Grayson Waller to continue the match when he was trying to walk out towards the end. Are we about to see a face Austin Theory? Is this how they get Austin Theory, back in the limelight of WWE and where he should be? Because he is lately, the last year now, has been completely wasted by Triple H. I know he was a Vince guy upon arrival in WWE, but he's so damn talented, you gotta find something for him to do. If that means having him turn face and feuding with Grayson in the future, I'm okay with that. We'll see where that goes. A big complaint that I had tonight was the NBA stuff that they had. I understand the two players from the respective teams of the Pacers and the Knicks that are involved in this whole ordeal. I get it because they were on an episode of, I believe, Raw months ago, and now both teams are facing each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yes, I get that, but why did you have to spend 10 minutes of Raw talking about that and interviewing a basketball player? People aren't tuning in. People aren't paying up the ass ticket prices to sit and look at a Titantron while you talk to some basketball player that probably half the fans don't even know who that is. That was a mistake. This was my biggest problem of Raw last night. That could have just been a segment that was saved for social media, your Instagram page, anything else but live on Raw. I did not agree with this at all. There was a cage match announced for, I think it's Saturday night's main event coming up, if I'm not mistaken, or some event between, yet again, Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest. They've had, a dozen matches in the last year. They gotta figure out something better to do between these two guys other than face each other. And I made an interesting note. Call me crazy, but is it just me, or has WWE lately been announcing cage matches in response to AEW cage matches? We just saw a cage match at Beach Break between Samoa Joe and Jon Moxley. The match itself was great. The outcome, eh. But anyways, and now we're seeing a cage match announced again. This happened a couple months back when it was the cage match between Fletcher and Ospreay, and then we found word that they were gonna have a cage match on Raw that following Monday between Rollins and Punk, and that cage match was slower than molasses, and nothing really special happened in it. You had one big move happen where I think it was like a superplex from the top of the cage, but their cage is 3 feet lower, so it's really no higher than a regular superplex off the top rope. That was it. That was the highlight of that match. Otherwise, they just hit each other with finishers left and right, which you do in any normal match. They just did not utilize the cage very well, so I'm hoping that this one between McIntyre and Priest is done better. We shall see how it compares, but I've said it before, I'll say it on this video. AEW does the better cage matches, and until I see a spectacular WWE cage match, that's not going to change anytime soon in my mind. We saw an unfortunate injury last night. Zoe Stark blew her knee. I'm not going to show a photo in respects for her. People, if you want to see that, by all means, go ahead. I don't think it's necessary, nor does it respect her as a competitor to show that gruesome injury that she dealt with. Pretty sad to see. I mean, you could hear her screams right away. You knew it was legit because both Kairi Sane, who returned, by the way, and Rhea Ripley were staring and just thinking, shit, like, what do? We got to improvise. And props out to both of those ladies for improvising and still putting out a decent match after this happened. Zoe Stark had to get carried back. Unfortunately, she probably blew her knee, her ACL or MCL, or even both. And she's going to be out for some time. She's in her 30s. I don't want to jump the gun and say it, but this likely could be a career-ending injury. Rhea Ripley picks up the win. It was another qualifier match for Money in the Bank, so she moves on. A positive note to make before I cover the rest of the show. 2 hours in, and we had 5 matches. Look at that. I joked with a friend saying that this is the most AEW feeling Raw. And I mean that in a good way, because we didn't see 25 minutes of a promo at the beginning, and then another 10-minute promo, and then another 10-minute promo, and then 15 ads. And then, well, we saw some of that stuff, which I've talked about already in this video that I didn't like. But for the most part, this was a very well-balanced pro wrestling centric episode of Raw, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was definitely one of the best Raws of the Netflix era. I'd say top 3 or 4 for me. I don't give a damn about this Rusev storyline with Otis and Tozawa. They are 2 jobbers that would not even be on my list of wrestlers in the company if I ran WWE. There's just really nothing special to them. Tozawa is just any other guy. Otis, he's getting slower in the ring as he's gotten older, and unfortunately they kind of buried him to be just like this big beef guy gimmick. Don't really care. Slow main event match between Uso and Breakker. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't feel very good. It was a solid match. I'm not going to downvote it, but very slow paced. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee are terrible at distancing. They said that Breakker leaped 20 feet from the outside of the ring over their announce table. That was not 20 feet. But solid match nonetheless.